Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hi, and welcome to the Popternative podcast here on Blab. I am your host, as always, Peter Remoliotis, and on Twitter I go as PD Beats. This is the show where we discuss topical, we have digital dialogues and topical discussions from the worlds of social media, sports, and pop culture. Today we have three amazing guests with us. Before we get into the panel, I just want to say something quick. Today is Remembrance Day and Veterans Day. So today is a day where we express gratitude and say thank you to the men and women that have served in our armed forces. This is for the men and women that served in our past, but also for the present. So we say thank you and we express gratitude, and lest we forget. So today we have a really cool panel. I'm really happy with tonight's panel. So we're just going to go around. So we have from TSN, we have an anchor and reporter. We have Nabil Karim, who's joining.
What's going on, man?
Not much. Thank you so much for it. Was pretty. It was a challenge to also book you on the show, right? But we went back and forth quite a lot.
Dude, I got the worst schedule in the world, man. Like it's a cool gig, but I get basically every week. I go week by week basically, so I only have a schedule for a week ahead of time. So to book something like this is kind of difficult because I'm usually working the nights. But glad to be here, man. Thanks for having me and waiting for me. And you're going to be terribly disappointed, but it's your fault.
We also have a social media marketing manager for the Detroit Red Wings in the National Hockey League. We have Kevin Wilson with us. So
hi guys, thanks for having me, buddy.
No problem. And we have Aly Munro with us. She is a TV host, event host, does some work for the web series and website NHL Flash. So Aly, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
So this is the time now where we just go around the horn and you can do your little introductions and your little bios. So Nabil, what's up, man? What do you like?
What's up, or what's my bio? What?
Your bio. What's up? What's up with the bio? Like, what's going on?
So I'm totally confused. Bio is like how I got to where I am, or bio like just
bio. Anything you want. Anything you want to say.
All right. You know what, man? I'm good. I'm a new dad now, so you can see my cup here. I don't know if you can see my kid or not. There he is.
Congratulations.
There he is. Thank you. So that's kind of changed my life a little bit. So he's 5 months old and he's doing good. He's a big kid. He's about 19 pounds. So he's a heavy set. He's going to be a lineman, I think, when he grows up. But it's changed work a little bit. But no, things are good. I'm glad to be here. Work at TSN, for those of you who don't know, sports anchor there, do a little bit of reporting. I'm kind of a rover, do a little bit of everything, which is nice. But again, it also makes for a tough schedule. But it's kind of interesting being in the sports world, and I'm assuming all you guys kind of know that we're all at different points, but kind of in the same industry, right?
Yeah, no, that is true. We're all in sports, social media, and you're on, like, you're in broadcasting, but social media is a huge part of what you do on a daily basis as well, right? You're live tweeting all the time. So it's good. Kevin, what about you?
Social media marketing manager for the Detroit Red Wings. So basically anything you see going up on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, sometimes Snapchat, it's coming from me or one other guy who's actually in this chat, AK. He's the one whose bio says male model. So we do all the work for the Red Wings and everything like that, all the social media.
Aly, floor is yours.
Most recently, I was the events host for the Toronto Blue Jays through that amazing playoff run and all season long, so that was incredible. I'm also a producer and host on Rogers TV, including for the Mississauga OHL team. And as you mentioned, I am a producer and host on a website called the NHL Flash.
Do you sleep?
I think you know the answers to that. We're both kind of in that broadcasting industry.
Yeah.
I'd rather have a couple beers than sleep.
All right. I know we'll do it. We'll do it after the game one day. Yeah.
I just wanted to say that like Nabil and one of Nabil's work buddies, I don't know if that Gurdeep, all were amazing at live tweeting during the Blue Jays games. Like, they were great tweets.
Gurdeep's a jerk.
Yeah.
Did he get back? Did he get back to you?
We're in the Yes, he has. He did actually.
Yeah,
we're in the process. It's complicated. He's gonna.
I was a diva, man. I'll tell you.
Diva.
I work with him. I know. Trust me.
Yeah, I know, right? He's like, I got to host off the record. I'm sorry.
I know. Like, see, at least I'm 20 minutes late, but because I'm stupid. Not because I wanted to be 20 minutes late.
Not diva status.
Gurdeep's just going to show up 30 minutes late. Nope, that's his style. He's always 30 minutes late. He's going to be waiting by his phone. He'll be checking Twitter, and then he'll come in fast late. That's his thing.
Yeah. But yeah, no, like, so we were talking about the Blue Jays recently, you know, and there was it was crazy on social media, you know, the trended globally, you know, Come Together trended globally for 2 hours during that last, you know, Texas Rangers game. So it was insane. So it leads me to, you know, an opening topic that all three of us can discuss, you know, just about like in-game tweeting or like live tweeting while you're watching a game, right? Because, you know, whether it's a hockey game or a football game, or even when you're watching, you know, the Grammys or you know, WrestleMania, for example. Victoria's Secret Fashion Show, exactly. There's going to be, you know, you're having these like conversations with people live, and there's so much going on. There's going to be situations where you're going to want to tweet something edgy or something, you know, that maybe, you know, you're not sure if it goes overboard or not, right? So there's kind of like a heat of the moment stuff. So how do we, like, all three of us, you know, how do you, you know, process that when you're, you know, watching a sporting event, you have your phone with you? What are things that come through your mind? Especially Kevin, I'm really interested to see what you say about this because, you know, it's part of your job, live tweeting games and, you know, talking to fans. So Kevin, what goes through like your mind when you have to live tweet a game and, you know, the do's and don'ts and, you know, whether there's situations where there's kind of, you know, temptation to tweet something edgy where you're like, no, I can't do it. Is there a game plan before you go in a live tweet or anything?
Not so much a game plan. We sort of have sort of an identity as like as an organization. You know, people typically view the Red Wings as first class, very respectful, great sportsmanship. So that's sort of our identity. We don't really have an identity like the LA Kings, who are kind of trying to get it. I know I know you guys love the Kings social media, as do I, but it appeals to their market more than it does ours because they have to pump their tires and they have to promote themselves because they're competing with not just the Dodgers and Angels and, you know, the Clippers and Lakers. They're competing with entertainment and everything like that. So to get back to your question without rambling, we think like a fan. That's sort of, we tweet like fans and Snapchat stuff like fans and everything like that because that's who's tuning in. Sometimes it's fun to be edgy, but like we learned last year, with that tweet that we sent out, anything can blow up at any given time, so you got to be careful.
What was the tweet? I forgot. What was the tweet?
It was one thing like some girl tweeted in to us. I want to marry a Red Wings. Like I want to marry a Detroit Red Wing. My goal in life is to marry a Detroit Red Wing. # Puck Bunny. And so we responded like, please aspire to greater things than this. And it blew up. It went on. It was on TSN, right?
Yeah, the sports.
Yeah, we must have put it on.
Bar down put it as well.
Bar down loves that stuff, man.
Bar down put me on recently in the QMJHL. I was on Bar down recently, which is pretty cool.
I mean,
that's something to aspire to. The Puck Bunny should aspire to Bar down.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
Kevin, don't you feel any pressure though, man? Don't you feel any pressure as a site there and as a social media team to kind of compete with some of the LA Kings of the world and stuff? Because I've even noticed that like other teams are going back and forth at each other now during games, which is kind of neat. I guess it can go over the top at times, but it can kind of annoying because it kind of fills up your feed a little bit. But at the same time, it's kind of the way it's going. Otherwise, people don't want to follow you. Is that not the case?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like I was saying, I mean, you definitely gotta think like a fan, and you gotta respond like a fan. You gotta respond to your fans, like, you know, turn the tweets into a dialogue, and you have to have a personality. You can't just be like a computer, like a droid or anything like that. So there is temptation, yeah. And we did, like just last week, we did something with the Tampa Bay Lightning before the game. The NHL tweeted something out from their account and just said, they just said, who wins tonight, Tampa or Red Wings? And we said Red Wings, and Tampa said, no, we're going to win. And so we said, how about, you want to bet kind of thing? We went back and forth, and ultimately we decided that if we were going to win, they had to buy 2 tickets for Red Wings fans down there for our February 3rd game. And if they won, we would go give 2 of our fans signed pucks by Brad Richards because he won the Conn Smythe with them. We won the game, but both teams honored what they had said they would do. So
that's cool.
We tweeted that out, like, a couple of Lightning fans in with Richie pucks and everything. And it went over really well. Like, so there is times when you can do that, but you definitely have to be mindful of, what account you're tweeting from. That's for sure. But there is
that's true.
I think it's very situational. It depends if you're working the game or if you're there as a fan. I mean, when I'm reporting for the OHL broadcast out of Mississauga, I definitely want to tweet out details of a goal for those who, even if they're watching the broadcast, it's a instantaneous piece of information. They can get it right away. Who got the assist on that, if that was missed or something like that. But when I go out to watch a game as a fan, for example, I was at a CIS game recently, and I've been watching a lot of OUA hockey, and I was really upset with the reffing, and I wanted to tweet at the league. Again, it was heat of the moment type thing, and you have to think about your brand as a Twitter account and if that's the right move. In the moment, I did tweet it out, just saying how skillful the players are and how the reffing needed to be better. And then after about 10 minutes, I went back and deleted it because I was like, this just doesn't go with my vibes of a Twitter account. So I guess it depends on if you're working or if you're being a fan.
And, Aly, this is something I want to ask you as well, and Nabil, I have a question for you too. But Aly, you interviewing, like, a big part of your job, whether it's with the Jays or whether it's with, NHL Flash or Trending, you interview, you ask questions, right? Like,
yes.
So you're in contact with you're interviewing a lot of athletes. Do you use social media as a tool for research as well? So you have someone on, because you have someone from the North Bay Battalion on your show.
That was the exact example I was going to use. I mean, when I'm working for the Blue Jays, I would agree with Kevin. We kind of, we do it as a fan. So the Blue Jays organization is very involved in helping me write those questions and what I'm asking the players, because it's an interview in front of a live audience, and it's usually ahead of a game. So we're asking very situational questions. So social media, not so much. It's more about the fans. But then the Zack Bratina incident, for those who don't know, Bratina is a guy who plays for the North Bay Battalion who has to retire from hockey due to concussion symptoms. And he's had a great start to the season. I think he has 15 points in 12 games. And he just recently got hit again in a game against the Steelheads, and he's retiring. So we have an interview with him on Thursday night, and he tweeted out his a screenshot of his notes in his phone, and it was just him explaining his decision to leave the game of hockey. And we're going to use that exact tweet. We're going to put it up on the screen as a graphic, and it couldn't have been said any better. It's right on his Twitter account. So definitely social media helps you research ahead of an interview.
Yeah, and Nabil, you're interviewing a lot of people as well, of course, with your job. But the one thing that I wanted to ask, goes similar to your question you raised to Kevin, is you're on air. People, are watching you on TV all the time. TSN has the Ottawa Senators regional rights, so the game was on in our living room yesterday. You were on TV, right? My mom was like, "Hey, that guy's coming on your show tomorrow. That's so cool, right?" So people recognize you, right? Is there I'm sure there's a type of brand or a type of tone that you kind of have to keep consistent on your personal account as well, right?
Yeah, it's interesting. It's kind of moved back and forth since I got Twitter, because at first I think when I was using Twitter, I wasn't really using it the right way, and I just retweet a lot of things, and that's not really the interaction you want, right? Yeah. So since I got to TSN, I mean, they're a lot tighter at TSN than they were when I was at CBC about Twitter, and Twitter's also become more expansive and more influential, so they should be, and I have TSN on my handle, right? So you got to represent TSN, but you also got to represent your own brand and yourself too. So I mean, I have a couple of rules. Like, for example, if I'm going to break news, I don't really break a lot of news being on SportsCenter. I'm not reporting that much anymore. My one thing is, if Bob McKenzie or one of these big guys tweets, I don't really retweet that anymore. I kind of learned that at a pretty early stage because Bob's got 1 million followers. So there's really no need to retweet Bob McKenzie. It just doesn't make any sense. So for me, I kind of figure that in the last little while, even with the Blue Jays tweets and things like that, just people like to have fun. And, you pick out little things. And I have fan type tweets at times, like when I was watching the Jays, I wasn't working. So I was working, I was doing a post-game show, but I wasn't, there at the game kind of working. So I've kind of figured a nice little medium, but there's times where I've tweeted things that are funny or like totally off kilt, and I'm kind of like, oh boy, I hope I don't hear from the boss sort of thing. And a great example is like Jay and Dan when they were here.
Yes.
I mean, their leeway was a lot further, and they can get away with some stuff that I think if we do, we wouldn't, just because we haven't earned it. And they developed that personality and that rapport with their followers. So
yeah, I find that interesting. You say that too, because Derek Taylor, who's one could argue he's new too, right? Like he's been there for he's been there for a while, but he hasn't been there, like for that long.
Probably
right?
less than a year. Yeah, probably.
Yeah, exactly. But he's funny. Like he is really funny, and I found him on Twitter a couple of days ago, and like I'm looking forward to his tweets. Right? I'm really excited about that because he's really funny. And, that's another thing that, like Kevin, humor and sports, or leveraging pop culture in social media content, which is actually one of the reasons why Popternative is a thing, because that's what I love. I love leveraging and, referring to pop culture in my tweets. Do you guys do any of that stuff? I'm sure the league loves doing that, right? Posting GIFs and memes from pop culture and everything.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. We'll post a GIF from Arrested Development or The Office or a funny TV show that people are familiar with, like a running gag or something like that. Like last night, Brooks Lake, we were playing the Caps, and Brooks Lake goes crashing into the net, and we tweeted out a GIF of Tobias Funke dressed like Mrs. Featherbottom crashing into the table on Arrested Development. I don't know if anybody knows that reference, but So, I mean, like, we do that kind of stuff. We like to throw in some pop culture here and there whenever we can.
Well, sports is entertainment, so you should be mixing it in, I feel like, with pop culture. I think then you kind of expand your audience a little bit there. Like the one thing I've been trying to link things to is this whole Starbucks Christmas fiasco.
Yes.
And I'm thinking of I'm trying to relate it back to sports. And I actually had a great article idea of why Canadians fans without price shouldn't be freaking out, and relating it to Starbucks and everyone freaking out over the red cups and lack of Christmas apparently. So I think it's important. It just kind of, it adds a little bit of humor. It relates it to something else, and everybody gets a good laugh as long as they understand the reference. And if they don't, they can look it up easily because it's definitely trending elsewhere in the Twitterverse.
Yeah, and we had a question before about the LA Kings from Furkan R, who wanted to know, about the, and it's kind of what you said in the beginning, Kevin, about the LA Kings. There's so much competition with other sports going down there as well. One can make the argument that they were one of the first teams that, use like humor and edginess, in their tweets or in their content. Yeah. And, they got to do that to stand out because, I know, Aly and I were talking, different sports organizations or leagues will have a lot of rules about certain things, what like the styles and everything, but you do want to, stand out and be edgy. And I want to be funny. Like when I do QMJHL content, I like being funny. And, when someone will tweet out and say, man, the QMJHL guy has a similar style to the LA Kings, I take that as a compliment, right? Because it's something that I look at. But you do have to be careful. You have to have a balance because, Nabil, it is a source for information as well. It can't be funny all the time.
Yeah.
But
I think you got to remember, like I think Kevin was saying, like you got to remember your audience too, right? Like if they're coming to you for news and information, you got to bring the news and information at the same time, right? You can be entertaining and also bring the news and information at the same time. I think, in-game stuff, you can have some fun, right? That's when you can do the GIFs, you can have some photos and do whatever you want to do and all the funny stuff during the game because it's a great opportunity because there's so many other people out there who are tweeting each goal, each play, especially when it comes to like my gig, when it's like the Leafs or something. How many thousands of people are tweeting every time the Leafs score a goal, so or even every hit penalty. So you can take another approach to that. But I think before the game, you want to be the guy who says, hey, this guy's starting, this guy's not starting, these are the storylines, whatever it is, right? Because that's what people want to hear and they want to get set into before the game.
That is a good point. And another thing too that I wanted to talk about too is, in the age of social media, and I think it's become more of an epidemic with the, everyone says, oh, it's so great. There's so much cool stuff to find on social media these days. But, one can make the argument that that's a bad thing too, right? There's a term that I like, something I can't stand about social media is the ability of clickbait articles getting so much traction. Do you guys know what I mean by clickbait articles?
Dude, I have no clue, man.
Okay, so
probably
Justin Bieber got Kim Kardashian pregnant. That's clickbait.
Yeah,
something
like
that.
Sidney Crosby got traded.
Sidney Crosby might get traded to the.
So you go there, and that's not it. That's not what it is.
And it's like a bogus story. It's like one line, or it's like an advertisement.
Oh, okay.
And it's. But I can't see it slowing down. Like they're getting so many shares on a daily basis, guys. Like it's.
Well, what you have to do is, I just was at a meeting today with Yahoo Sports, and they were saying the exact same thing. Anybody can take their computer into their basement and, have a bag of chips on their mom's couch and call themselves a blogger and talk about hockey because there's so many sports fans in this world. But how you separate yourself and the content you put out on the internet is by actually being credible and justifying yourself. So these people who are putting up articles about Sidney Crosby might be traded, well, you're breaking so many rules of journalism right there. So to even click on something that hasn't been posted by one of the major networks like Sportsnet or TSN or ESPN or Comcast, wherever you are in North America, don't even click it. There's already rules of journalism broken in the title.
Yeah.
So I think that you need to justify yourself right off the bat. And if the story is one line, then anybody who's internet friendly will know to veer away from an article like that.
And continue.
So social media is actually, it's great for journalism, but it's also been terrible for journalism too. Like
because everyone thinks they can be a journalist.
It's ridiculous at times too. Like you'll see it for us, for example, at the trade deadline. It becomes absolutely insane how many people will come up with these fake accounts for Bob McKenzie or for Pierre LeBrun. Whoever. Yeah, LeBrun every year gets it. But there's also other people who come out and they just love the term insider. And my sources say, or I can confirm this, and it's mind-boggling how many people want to do that. And hey, that's fine. If that's something you want to do, you want to be a guy who's going to break, then you have to do it in a credible way. Already, Twitter. Another thing about Twitter is getting it out there first. And there's been so many mistakes. People have made so many mistakes, and it's one of those things you have to be so careful. So journalism is so watered down right now with Twitter. It's great for information, but everyone wants to be first. Yes, for the credibility and for followers.
Exactly.
When you say
but it's more important to be right than it is to be the first.
100%.
That's my question. When you say mistakes, is it more like mistakes like, tweeting something that like a trade and it's like the wrong trade, or are you talking about also like mistakes like typos and that?
No, typos, like there's all that Twitter police too, but like typos and things like that, like whatever. I don't care about that. I'm talking more about mistakes content-wise, right? So I know, for example, a few years back, there was somebody who I know from back from Vancouver, where I'm from, who he's blogging, I guess, or something, and he said he knows Roberto Luongo was being traded to from the Canucks to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and it started trending a little bit on Twitter. I mean, he was getting a lot of play for it. Roberto Luongo never came over to the Toronto Maple Leafs, and so I'm not saying his sources were bad or whoever it was, but you have to be so careful. And he sent that tweet out probably a week before the deadline or something. It's one of those things, man. It's like, things can happen, and sometimes in the hockey world or in the sports world, trades that were supposed to happen sometimes fall through. It happens. We saw that with Jerome McGinley a couple of years ago, right? Going to he was supposed to be going to, I think, the Bruins or something. Went to the Penguins. But these things happen. But at the same time, like Aly was saying, people want to be first. They just want to get it out there, and they want those followers. And you can do it that way, but eventually credibility wins at the end. right? Like credibility is what it's all about. Credibility will get you followers because people will come back, they'll retweet your stuff, they'll trust you. And then when there is a big story, they'll say, hey, I'll go to Aly's account, I'll go to Kevin's account, I'll go to Peter's account and check out and see what they're saying.
Yeah, and Kevin, you must Detroit, you're going through the feeds on the Detroit Red Wings. There must be hundreds of Detroit Red Wing prospect.coms or accounts that are not even affiliated with you, that are tweeting out stuff and even messaging you for inquiries. That must be kind of difficult to deal with as well, right?
Yeah, it is. We're very fortunate though. We have a great fan base in Detroit that care
enough
to be able to do. No, I know. No, I'm saying we have our fans care so much that they're so invested in our prospects, and we're not like in LA Kings where they're in California, but their minor league team is in Canada. Our minor league team is a 2-hour drive west of the state with the Grand Rapids Griffins. So if anybody, if you have a kid like Anthony Mantha who people really want to go see, you can hop in your car on a Friday night and go watch him if you really are that big of a fan. So we have a lot of sites like that and everything like that. But as far as the prospect news, that's where we get most of our news. Like myself and some people around the office, we have bloggers and stuff like that keep up with it every day, and we have a couple Twitter handles that tweet everything the prospects do every day, all over the world. It's great. So if somebody has a big game in the minors, like when Marty Ferk tore it up a few years ago in the Q, that was news that people were excited about because he was a prospect and he was tearing it up.
Yeah, and there's, for example, I know someone, Mike Walters, he runs a Anaheim Ducks fan account blog and podcast called Ducks and Pucks. They have about 15 to 16,000 followers. And, there's absolutely no affiliation with the Ducks. And they have such power. It's insane. And it blows my mind. So I'm glad, we were able to talk about this. Now I want to move more towards...
I'll give you one more example, if you don't mind. I'll jump in. There's a guy, when I was covering the NBA last year and towards the trade deadline, I believe his name is Sharms Charania. I think he works for Yahoo Sports now. But at the time, he was running his own blog. And I just found him randomly. Somebody had retweeted him. And at that time, I think he had 16,000 followers. And he was breaking trades. They weren't major trades, but he was breaking trades. And I started following him. Throughout the year, he was getting more and more retweets from some of the big guns in the NBA industry. And he must have some great sources because now I believe he is working for Yahoo Sports. So that you can do it that way. You can start a blog. You can work your way up and do what he was doing.
You have to set yourself apart, and then
absolutely. You could. I don't know the guy personally at all. I follow him. I trust his stuff, and he's blown up, and good for him.
Down Goes Brown is another example.
Down Goes Brown's good.
Yeah.
But don't you also find, before we move on to talk about, broadcasting interviews, because I have some specific questions about that, but, don't you think also that's could it be seen as a bad thing, too? Everyone's social media is a great platform because, people could just start their own blogs or podcasts, right? But at the same time, we were talking about with the whole clickbait and the credibility, this huge, saturated market of everyone trying to get, traction emerges. And will lead to people thinking that they can get a lot of retweets and tweets from clickbait. Because it happens a lot.
I don't know if anybody's following this Instagram stuff that's going on about Game Changer. It's about a model who is being paid for her Instagram account, and she's decided to quit Instagram, and she's talking about all the negatives that have come along with it. I think you can kind of relate that to sports journalism or any type of journalism on the internet because people, they have that. It's not a filter. It's not like the sepia filter, but they have a lot of articles open on their computer to help them put together a tweet that can make them sound very knowledgeable. And if you can go through someone's timeline, they might have a lot of insightful tweets, but who knows how much that is plagiarism or how much that is an actual person's ability to speak about. So I guess that could be something negative with it. But if they're putting in the time to do the research, my guess is they do have some sort of base of knowledge.
And Mike Barber just had a really good comment here. Says those people will always look and achieve the short term. They'll never achieve long term credibility, in my opinion. I think that's a fair point. But getting back to that person on Instagram, Aly, I know one person, the Essa Fung. He's a Vine like he's a Vine superstar. The guy has millions of Vines followers. I Googled and I clicked because I wanted him on the show, because it would have been really cool. He was playing bands. I used to be a concert promoter. I booked his bands a few times. He now, like, if you want to book these people, these like big Vine celebrities, like there's a lot.
Mendes.
Yeah, those type of people. Well, Shawn Mendes is more like a singer now, but he started
his singing on Vine.
More like the comedy too. So that guy with his dog Quincy, have you ever seen that one where his dog and they're just like, we're going on a road trip and they're like howling at each other. They're like part of a company called like Viral Influence or something, and it's like you can like someone's capitalized on those big influencers and are making money with it. So someone has a product or someone has a show, you pay them, they'll tweet it out. They have millions of people, so it's become like a source of advertisement. I gotta plug it in.
Dude,
continue. Nabil, you want to say something?
Oh yeah, sorry. So no, there's sorry, I cut you off there, but I was just, as soon as you're telling me that, so there's a guy called the Body Coach on Instagram also, and he just comes up all these like lean recipes for foods and stuff. And there's so many of those people too, but he also has this basically, I think it's called Lean in 15 or something like that. And basically he has a 3-month plan where you can kind of cut down. And from what I understand, he just started on Instagram. He's got a massive following. He's now written 2 books. He's been on a couple shows overseas. Like the guy's absolutely blown up. So you talk about making a revenue stream from it can happen.
Well,
it can absolutely happen.
So this is going to sound crazy. And this is more my sister, and I have to give my sister credit because my sister has, we both run the account. But so my sister and I have created an Instagram account for our dog, Little Leo, and he has about 80,000 Twitter followers. And, Dyson sent us a vacuum. Like, if we would,
to put in the Instagrams.
Yeah. Like, they have a new vacuum that, takes care of, pet hair and, Ness is caught by your pets, right? And, he's getting, endorsements. And, it's such a big... And it's like, my sister's content is amazing. And I think they come back... They come to it, too, because it's good content. So what... Kevin, this is a question maybe for you. What happens if it becomes too revenue monetizing, right? Like if you have a huge account with all this cool content and then it's all advertisements, you lose the touch, right? There's got to be a balance.
Yeah, absolutely. It reminds me of Social Network when they're talking about we're cool at the beginning. They're saying we're cool because we don't have ads and we never crash and all this stuff. We're cool because it's just content. So yeah, we use social media for we sell sponsorship on social media, but we try to develop programs that make sense for our fans and the sponsor and us. So it's not to sponsor right in your face and everything like that. We try to sort of make them, sort of fit where it's interesting instead of just, slapping a name on something.
Yeah. I think that's it's tough because we're getting people wanting to advertise on the account, but if you take first of all, you can't necessarily take everyone because maybe, depending on your market, it's not the right product, to be associated with. But you don't want it just to be ads, right? You want to maintain that brand. But now, moving past now, I wanted to take advantage of the fact that I have, Nabil and Aly, who, are on TV as, interviewers and reporters at times. And Kevin, you do more of the social media, but I've seen you, when we hung out at the Memorial Cup in London a couple years ago, you had video people with you, taking, videos, right? So, Nabil, what am I talk about this, so World Juniors is my favorite event. That's my favorite sporting event. And a couple of so it was the lockout year. And I think you were pretty new to TSN. I think you were 2-3 years in, you were new. You were one of the reporters. You were doing, I believe, what Mark Masters does, you were, it was, so Ryan Nugent-Hopkins was on the team, right?
Yeah, that was the year in UFA.
Yes, in UFA. So I will never forget, Canada got eliminated and did not make it to the final. Russia beat them. And, I swear it was maybe, 5 minutes after they got eliminated, you had to interview Ryan Nugent-Hopkins.
Yeah.
And me and my sister were like, this poor guy, man, like right away, like yeah, Ryan Hopkins, but what about you? You know what I mean? Like you want to, like, I mean, it's part of the job, right? The bill, but like, how do you, that must be one of the hardest things, right? And for future, broadcasters and hosts out there that, watch a show, what is some advice? And then Ali, you can also, chime in as well. What's some advice maybe you have for them, dealing with situations like that?
Yeah, that was a tough moment, man. That was a tough moment in my career. Actually, it was a big learning experience. And first of all, Nugent Hopkins was great. He was really good in that tournament. We used him a lot, and he was good at that post-game interview too, because I did the World Juniors after that, and they also fumbled in that one too, and some of the guys weren't as good. But that's the way it is, man. That's the industry. You got to ask him the questions. And I remember I took a lot of heat. I took so much heat on Twitter because that tournament brings in so much emotion in this country. Mm-hmm. It has become maybe the biggest tournament that happens all year, mm-hmm. depending on the year, right? So it's one of the biggest, if not the biggest, every year. So there was so much emotion. That team, I believe, was supposed to be one of those super teams, kind of like the Crosby team a few years back. I think in 2005, they had all this talent. They were supposed to win. Mm-hmm. It was that locker year, like you mentioned. But you got to ask them the questions, man. You got to ask them the questions. What went wrong? You can't just say, hey, yeah. You can't just say, hey, that's too bad. You lost. Like, what positives came out? They lost. It was a negative. They were the favorites. They were supposed to win that tournament. They had enough talent to win that tournament. Something had to have gone wrong. Where did it go wrong? You have to ask those questions, and it's uncomfortable. It can backfire on you. Clearly, it depends on who you're talking to, because I did an interview, I think the next year, with Jonathan Drouin, and Drouin was not happy with me. He was not happy at all. And understandably so, that's fine. That's totally fine. I mean, again, like you said, there's a lot of emotion. They've just lost, but that's when you got to talk to the players, and that's great TV. That is absolutely the best TV you get, because if you talk to them half an hour later, they've had that ability to calm down for sure, but they can't relay their emotions the same way, and it's just human nature, right? And so, and also for TV, people at home are waiting. They want to know. They want to hear what this guy has to say. So it's a tough spot to be in, especially as a reporter. I think as a host, you can kind of massage it, but as a reporter, you've got to ask those questions, and sometimes you give them a couple softballs at first to kind of warm them up a little bit, and then after, you have to kind of get in there, and whatever the issue was with the game or the team or whatever, you have to get into it at some point. If you don't, then you're the fool out there, because you got to do your job.
Yeah, just to add on to that, I think that human interest stories are the main thing about journalism. As a reporter, you're just trying to bring the people at home something that they couldn't get themselves, right?
Absolutely.
So in order to avoid it, you avoid the trigger words, I guess, like mistake or anything, like things like that put the interviewee on the defense, where they feel like they have to stand up for themselves or their team. And then another rule of journalism that I've learned is, saving those questions that are, even if they're in a good mood and they had a good game, if you wanted to ask them how they got that amazing goal, they're going to say it about the team. If that's the first question you ask, they're always going to take the pressure off themselves and give credit to other people. Even if it's a loss, save it till like the third question, and you've kind of created a bit of a cushion, and they'll give you a bit more of a raw answer. And another big thing is just creating relationships with the people you're interviewing, making sure you have a bit of a name for yourself. If you're a new reporter, as you were at the time, Nabil, then they might not have known that you weren't ever going to ask them anything that put them on the defense. And if they gain that mutual respect for you, just as like Christine Simpson, someone I really look up to in the industry, or of course like a James Duthie or anybody like that, or somebody at TSN who's out at the rink, they have that respect from the athlete. So I think that that's an important thing to have.
Yeah, I think for sure. Oh, sorry.
Oh no, you go ahead.
Just to follow up on that, like I think, like in a tournament like that, it's interesting because you're there for 2 weeks. You see these guys every single day, because we interview them every day. I do something on them every day. But at the same time, I think for a tournament like that, especially for the way we do it, you can only toss up so many softballs, because we're in a time, we're live, right? There's not an element of, okay, we have 2 minutes with this guy. It's literally you get him right after. Okay. And if you're not asking that question, the producer is yelling it in your ear. Ask them that. They don't give a rat's ass about everything else. So they'll let you give you one, again, you're right though. Like if it's
Little
somebody
cushion.
they know, if it's somebody they know and they respect a little bit more, or they see them all the time, maybe you're on that beat in their city or whatever it is, they might give you a little bit more. But at the same time, sometimes you don't have that leeway in a live broadcast, at a national level where it's like you can give them 3-4 questions and then ease them in. You got to sometimes, excuse me, get the emotional kind of question out of the way, see how they're feeling. I always kind of like to ask that, kind of look at their face and you can kind of just say, hey, I see it on your face. Right. Yeah, I see it on your face. But I even say sometimes, I see it on your face right now, like what's going through, that kind of thing. But then I'll get into it because you don't have that time. Sometimes you just don't. And that's kind of how you have to gauge it.
Kevin, what were you going to say?
Oh, I was going to say we have about 3 or 4 different beat writers that follow the team, and they're the same faces in the locker room every day, asking the coaches the questions and the players the questions and everything like that. So when you have a tough situation, like an interview that's kind of awkward, like when Babcock left to go to Toronto, we had guys in there that knew him well enough and had an established rapport where they could say, is this all about the money? And ask that question, have the balls to ask that question. And, sort of once you have that established credibility, you can ask those tough questions. But if you're a new guy, then...
Yeah, and even if you're somebody who's been around the block a little bit, it might be a little rough. When Brian Burke was here in Toronto, there's a certain columnist in the city of Toronto who lost a relationship with Burke based on questions he asked. And sometimes even if you've been there, you just still need to follow those rules of avoiding trigger words to put them on the defense, but still managing to get the raw emotion following a loss or a tough game.
Yeah, I think there's sort of the mutual respect between, you're not going to burn your bridges either way. You don't, if you're a coach or a player, you don't want somebody who's going to be dogging you all the time in the paper and in the press. And if you're a journalist, you don't want to, destroy a relationship with somebody that you're going to need because that's a big part of your job. So there is that mutual respect where you can, write an honest article and then, not be too critical.
Mm-hmm.
And Kevin, I'd add to that too by saying it's one thing when I've talked to a lot of players and some management off the record, and they'll tell you, a lot of guys will tell you, listen, man, you can ask me whatever you want, but when I'm in front of that camera, I got to do my job and you got to do your job.
Yeah.
And you may get an answer that's, testy. It's not what you want, but that's fine. And then off air, they're great with me. So sometimes you just have to do that. Even if you have a relationship, I have a relationship with a couple of guys that, have given me terrible answers or kind of snapped a little bit. But they're still contacts. They're great people. And that's what they had to do in that situation for their team. And there's also a difference too, I think, and this is interesting for young journalists too, is that when you're in a room and even when you're on a beat, because when I first started, I kind of was on a beat of somewhat of a beat. There's also a difference when athletes are in front of a television camera and when they're talking to reporters that are print. And I find it's a comfort thing. And it's not with all athletes, but it's with some of them. When you turn on that camera and that bright light, there's a sun gun light that hits you. You get you get different answers. You don't get as much sometimes from some of these players. But when you have a guy who will pull you aside after the scrum is done and say, hey, and then they can kind of massage some questions in and they can get a little bit more information from you. I find that's why some of the print guys get some amazing stuff. And I'm not making an excuse or whatever. I'm just saying that there are 2 different types of answers sometimes you get. Sometimes you get great stuff for TV that you can't convey in print because you get to see it, right? That's why we all hope for. But sometimes the print guys do a great job of that. They'll massage them a little bit and really get something different. And that's why some of these writers are so good.
It makes me want to go now YouTube, the best Brooksy and Torts moments of all time. Yeah, but but it's really cool, to have you Nabil on the show because this is what I wanted to do with Popternative, and to have Kevin, and Aly, and Kevin, you manage a huge, following. You guys have about 6,000 followers on Twitter. It's insane, and it's just there are so many people who are interested in learning about social media and broadcasting and this is a hot industry right now. And to be able to talk to people who are experts or specialists about this type of stuff, it's amazing, and it's it's educational as well. With my background too, I have a master's in communications and social media. Part of my thesis got published in Sports Illustrated on social media in the NHL. So it's
impressive.
Awesome.
I have to plug that there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's very impressive. You should be proud of that, man.
Yeah.
Humble brag.
I'm working on my second article with them too right now too,
Ooh.
which is pretty cool. And you know, I just think that social media, it's growing, right? And you know, you look at, you know, guys like Nabil, like people look up to you. Like I got a lot of messages today from people saying, I can't believe you have Nabil. He's probably one of my favorite anchors on TSN. So, you know,
they got low standards, bro. They got some low standards.
Yeah, but so I think we'll wrap up the episode soon. But what new thing that we've been doing lately? And first of all, we have a record-breaking amount of viewers on the show tonight. We have
Really up
over
there.
500 viewers we've had, so which is
Nice.
crazy. And you know, today's industry, broadcasting and social media. Nabil, you're the perfect example of it because, you know, with, you know, your 14.5 thousand followers and you're a perfect example of broadcasting and social media intertwining as well, right? It's like a peanut butter and jelly combination, right? Like
Yeah. Honestly, I didn't know how important it was when I first started in this industry. Like I said, when I joined Twitter back in 2011 or something like that, and I was at CBC, and I just retweeted other people. That's all I did. I could care less about it. I actually used it more as a news source than anything else, and that's what I was told, right, when I first started. And then as you start, you know, as Twitter started evolving and it became just so much more important in our industry, it is really important to tweet for us. Like, we are told to tweet, told to keep people up to date, and that's why we have Twitter accounts. That's why they're verified and so forth. And, you know, the ones who break news, yeah, they get more followers and so forth. But it is really important. It is important to get your name out there. It's important to get your voice out there. So it has become a huge part of our industry. I think everyone should be out there on social media to some extent anyways.
You had Monica Platic on your show last week,
Yep.
Pete, and she's the one who told me this, that your Twitter account is your brand. And so if you, I mean, a consistent resume, I know that if I was looking at somebody who was coming on my show or who I was interviewing and I went to their Twitter account, it's their brand, and you kind of get to know the person a little bit. So as an industry that your personality is a big part of, your Twitter account is definitely, and your Instagram, your Facebook, your Vine, your Snapchat, it's all part of your brand.
You're branding over multiple platforms as well, right?
Exactly.
Like you just mentioned.
Social media, we just did a survey with our fans the other day. Where do you get most of your information? And the number one answer was social media, more than, you know, anywhere else. So it's huge, and it's free publicity to your fans where you control the message. Like, it's very very powerful.
No, absolutely. So before you know, closing remarks, we've been asking. Actually, we have Kevin. You have actually a question from someone. How many people work to generate your content? How far in advance do you plan it out? So Matt's asked about your team and strategy a little bit.
Yeah, actually, I mean, in sports, there are a couple things. There are things you can plan for and things you cannot plan for. You know, we had an injury the other day, so we had to call somebody up right away. So we don't really have the time to get the graphic and the highlight package ready. But then there are things that you can plan for. Like, you know, we had Sergei Fedorov retirement night last night, so we can have all this stuff ready to go and everything like that. So for our content for social media, we probably have 4 or 5 people that work on stuff, whether it's designs or video or anything like that. All the departments in the sports industry kind of work really close together because it's sort of a lean and mean organization that we have at the Red Wings. So the things that we can plan for, we do a couple days in advance, if not more so. But then there are the spontaneous things that come up that you really just got to throw together everything you can at the last minute.
Matt does social media for the Guelph Storm in the OHL. And I got to say, I was just going to mention Mitch Balmas, who plays for the Charlottetown Islanders in the QMJHL, who's eligible for the 2016 draft, is tuned in right now, which is pretty awesome. And he's a big fan of the show. And he just asked you a question, Nabil. What's a normal day for you?
A normal day for me?
Yeah.
Depends. Like, if I'm doing Sports Center, it's usually in the evening, so I'll wake up late. Well, I used to wake up late. Now I have a kid, so he's not really all that. He's not all that nice to me in the morning. So he's up by 6:30. But He's a bit of a jerk like that too. But no, he's up early, so I'm up early, and I'll do a little bit of reading. Just kind of see what's going on throughout the day. I'm always on Twitter to check, see what's going on. And then I'll get into the studio about three and a half hours before the show. Yeah. We have a show meeting with our producer, and we go over, the storylines and some of the highlights that we're going to be doing, or not the highlights itself, but, what games we picked out and what stories we have. And from there we go. We write our on cameras, and I continue to do some more research, just because when you see a single shot of us, that's when it's actually in a teleprompter. When it's just the two of us in a wide shot, it's just, it's all ad-libbing. So that's SportsCenter. If you're reporting, I wake up in the morning, I find out what my assignment is. Again, just research as quickly as you can. Usually if it's the Leafs, you're at practice by 10 o'clock. You're filing a story by 1 o'clock. The other day I did the Senators hockey game, and I was hosting that day. And that's a totally different experience. That's what James does, and he's so good at it. So it sucks for anybody else who's got to do it, but it's a different experience, because that's a whole different thing, where it's a whole different element, because now you're just focused on the Ottawa Senators. So you got to beef up. Unless you're covering this team every day, you're on that beat every day. I mean, you can watch sports and all you want. You got to really get fine-tuned. So I'll spend hours in the morning, really reading different articles, different people who are on that beat, going through Twitter, and just try to prepare yourself, because you don't know what's going to happen in the game, right? So you want to be able to have that stat, or have that little note or nugget or whatever you need. So, and there's no prompter or anything like that. Everything is ad-lib there. So just different experiences. So long story, but it's just because I do a little bit of different things here and there. So it makes for an interesting week, that's for sure, doing different things.
So one thing we've been doing on Popternative lately is, we've been asking our guests, we started this last week, let's go around and give me 3 Twitter accounts, personals, or, brands that you think people, or Instagram that people should be following, that you kind of endorse. So I'll start first. There's a couple. So Chris Yandel, who does communications and social media and PR for Georgia Tech Athletics, is terrific. I've had him on the show a couple of times. He is really good at it. And Armand Walia, who does social media for Bleacher Report, is another one that's really good. So what about you, Kevin? Anyone that we should be following or we should check out that you think has good content?
I would say, the LA Kings for sure. Even if you're not a hockey fan, it's still fun to watch them do their thing and try and pump their tires as much as possible. I like John Butchiegrass. I think he's pretty good. And then, I like what Coca-Cola does, actually. I think they do a pretty nice job of a lot of their campaigns and everything like that. So it's just interesting.
Cool. What about you, Aly? Anyone that comes to mind?
Yeah, I was just trying to think. I already brought him up. Down Goes Brown, I find is so entertaining. I have his book and everything too. So great. I'm always entertained by him. Then I would say Monica Platic on her Twitter account. I know that she's taking some time off to raise her little girl, but when she's on social media, she's a wizard with that, and she has a way of starting conversation up. She started up Leaf Space a couple years back, and she just really knows how to connect fans with the sport they love. And then the other one that I will endorse is, of course, the NHL Flash, a new digital company that myself and Tyson Geik have started up, and we are accredited by the NHL, so we are at morning skates, we are at the Winter Classic, the draft, hopefully the All-Star game coming up, so I would definitely endorse following our account there.
Nabil, any accounts?
I'm a huge fan of Bruce Arthur. I think Bruce is one of the most talented writers out there. And the great thing about Bruce is you're not just getting sports. You're getting news. You're getting opinions. Oh, yeah. He's going to talk about everything under the sun. Current events, Bruce is all over it. I know he's got a ton of followers already, but I'm pretty sure the last 2 or 3 years he's been in Sports Illustrated's top 100 to follow in social media. He's great. Sometimes during elections and stuff, he can go over the top, but or actually throughout the year, he can go over the top. He tweets a lot. For a guy who's got, I think, 2 or 3 kids, he tweets a ton, but it's all really good stuff.
I actually tweeted at him asking him to come on the show in the near future, and he was like, man, I can't even, follow my actual schedule, I'm afraid. And I was like,
he's a busy dude. He's not lying. He's pretty good about
for
that.
sure. For sure.
I gotta say, you gotta follow Mackenzie and Drager. We find out through Mackenzie and Drager, and then on deadline day, that's where we get it. Like we get it from those guys, and then 3 hours.
They cross the border.
Yeah, because our GM Ken Holland, that's what he does on deadline day. He locks himself in his office for like 6 to 8 hours, and you don't hear from him. He's on the phone the whole time. So these guys get it, and then we get it, and then we find out later through our front office.
Well, I'll give you an example of that. I had a bit of a personal situation the other day with a friend, and I needed some help on social media, and I needed to get the word out. There was a bit of a press release and stuff, a news release. You can check out mine if you want. There's no point getting into it right now, but I needed it to get out. And so I actually emailed Bob, and I said, hey, can you help me out? I hate asking because, it's his own personal Twitter account. This would be retweeting something. And he did it for me, and it absolutely blew up. Once Bob retweets something, oh my god, he's got over 1.15 million.
It's insane. It's amazing. And you refer to him, Nabil, as Uncle James. James Duffy too has an amazing
Uncle Jimmy. That's my Uncle Jimmy. Yeah.
Possible guest on Popternative in the future as well. So
did he say? Yeah, and he knows another good follow, Jeff O'Neill.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh dog.
Yeah.
Leafs lunch. Okay, Leafs lunch is. I grew up as a Habs fan because I was from Montreal. But I know. I'm sorry. Tyson.
No, good year for you. It's good. It's all good.
But when you work in hockey, I find you kind of don't you guys find when you work in the industry? Well, I don't know. Nabil, you're a diehard Jays fan, but I find I become a fan of all sports. I have the teams I grew up watching, right? But doesn't the kind of fan
a good rivalry, a good anything?
But I had what were we saying just now?
Maybe lost the aspect of being a fan by covering it.
Oh, what was I saying before that? Oh, I can't believe it. I just blanked. I know,
when you're in the industry, do you feel like, other sports you become bigger fan of, that kind of thing?
Yeah.
We're talking about using Twitter to get a message out and followers.
Yeah, no. So do you think that if you're if you're do you lose like Kevin, you work for one team, so that's a bit different. But Nabil, you have to cover and oversee many different teams, right?
Yeah.
You're from Vancouver, correct?
Yeah, so for me, I'll give you an example. I think I know what you're getting at. Well, if I don't, I'm just going to take it somewhere else anyways. But I'm a fan of the Raptors. I can say that because there's only one team in Canada. I'm a fan of the Blue Jays. I can say that too, even though I was covering them too. I want them to do well. If they don't do well, when you're working, you're not biased, but you're not, whatever, right? Mm-hmm. It's different for hockey. It's really different for hockey. I know some people who never deal with hockey at all, even at TSN, can say they're a fan of, a certain team. Mm-hmm. I'm not anymore because I do some hockey, and some people are like, no, that's bullshit. You're lying, whatever. It's true. I think when you start covering a sport and you really get into it and you're in the room and so forth, I think you lose that aspect of being a fan. It's interesting. And if you don't, that's a problem too, because you don't want to be covering a team and a fan of the team too, I think. And I went to the 2011 Stanley Cup final. I grew up in Vancouver, so I was a Canucks fan growing up, for sure, hardcore Canucks fan growing up. But as I moved away, started getting into the industry, and I knew I kind of wanted to do hockey at one point, I knew I had to kind of level out that bias. And when I went to the 2011 Stanley Cup final, I was at all those games in Vancouver. I was at Game 7 when they lost. And, yeah, I wanted them to win, but was I crushed? Not really. And that was kind of the tipping point for me where I realized, okay, now I'm kind of at that point where I'm not really a fan. And for me, honestly, now I just don't want overtime. That's just me. Just so I can get out earlier.
Whatever makes the job easier.
I remember what I was going to
100%.
I remember what I was going to say. I'm a Habs fan, and I just find Leafs lunch really, really entertaining. It's all.
Okay. Well, that's a completely different. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Who I really enjoy on that is Kara Wagland, and Kara started at the Rogers TV that I'm at, so I really look up to her. And when I hear her go off on her rampages and hear how knowledgeable she is, that's Big props to Kara Wagler.
Wags isn't.
Yeah, she's real good.
Wags, right? Isn't that like her?
Yeah, Wags. Yeah,
but
Wags.
Craig Button too is another. Craig Button has helped me tremendously with He's
the nicest man in hockey. There's no doubt.
He gave me a shout out on That's Hockey Tonight.
Did he?
I'm behind Nikolai Ehlers' nickname, the Dashing Dane. I created that.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so he
actually
said, they were talking, they're doing over and under in the bill with Tessa.
Yeah.
She was saying, will he get 20 goals over and under? And he's like, hashtag Dashing Dane. PD Beats, my buddy who came up with that. And I was like, yes, this is the coolest thing. And
that's my guy, Butsy, man.
He's coming. He's coming on Popternative November 26th. So
he'll be great.
That's amazing. And next week we have, kind of going away from hockey specifically. We have Pete Blackburn is on the show. You guys familiar with him? He covers a lot of Bruins and does a lot of stuff. We have Courtney Schilling, who does social media for the Cleveland Cavaliers, on the show, and we have Brian Wagner, who's a creative digital lead for Michigan U Athletics, the Wolverines. So it's going to be insane. Gurdeep was supposed to be in there, but I think it's not going to work. I think
he's big time in you, buddy. He's big time in you. That's what Gurdeep does.
Yeah, I know. So we'll try to put him on a future episode. But yeah, we're gonna wrap it up. But another thing too, very quickly, I don't know if he's still here, but he always wants me to give him shout outs. Follow Mitchell Balmus too, Balmus Mitchell, because even though he doesn't really tweet much, I always give him a lot of flack about that. Because he's always like, I want more followers. I'm like, yeah, but you don't tweet much.
Gotta get on that.
But yeah, no. So closing remarks very quickly. Anything going on that you want to plug in? Anything about?
Plug?
Anything you want to plug in?
Not really. SportsCenter goes on every night. Tune in.
Mm-hmm.
It's good
That's
for our
a good
ratings.
plug.
Follow Nabil on Twitter. Nabil Karim.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter if you like. Can't promise that much excitement, but sometimes it's fun. It's a good ride. You can unfollow me if you don't like, right?
Yeah. Kevin, what about you?
Go Red Wings.
Dylan Larkin, buddy. I love that kid.
We were just talking. Before when Nabil was 20 minutes. When Nabil was 20 minutes late, we're actually talking.
Not to bring that up again or anything.
Yeah. See, I'll tell you right now. That would be a faux pas at TSN, bringing that up on the podcast. 20 minutes late. The guest can bring it up. The host, that's very.
There we're
very
learning.
undotty line.
Gotcha.
I'm
totally kidding, Peter. I'm totally kidding, man.
It wasn't a nice. It was kind of a cruddy move, but.
No, dude, that's the way you got to do it. It's fun. That's how people have fun. I'm just bugging you.
But Dylan Larkin also had like one of the best World Juniors for the States last year too. Like what he was doing,
he's a special player.
That World Junior game, like the New Year's Eve game, Canada USA, where like he scored a goal, like it was like 5-3. The game was pretty much over. Puck drops, he scores a goal with like 40 seconds left, 5-4. Like he was so clutch for them. Like it was insane. Like he's having a great season for sure. Yeah. But Ali, there's so much stuff happening in your life. So much different stuff. So plug in what you can.
I'll give 3 plugs. OHL hockey on Rogers TV, always a good show. Friday nights, Sunday afternoons. Mm-hmm. Channel 369. Trending in Sports Weekly, Channel 369, and follow the NHL Flash on Twitter.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in for Popternative this evening. You can follow Popternative on Twitter at Popternative. You could check out our previous episodes if you missed this one on our YouTube and SoundCloud pages. Thank you so much, Kevin, Nabil, and Ali.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.